So, I've introduced a lot of people in my days, but I've never had the opportunity to introduce a disruptor. Okay, so if you've gone and looked anything about our speaker bio today, you see we have a disruptor. Nicole is an award-winning corporate executive and founder of Nicole Andrews International LLC. It's a career coaching, organization consulting, and speaking company focused on individual and organizational clients, positively disrupt the status quo on purpose with your career. So that sounds great. Nicole has worked in executive and professional leadership roles in top-tier organizations, including the Fortune 1000 and top 25 best places to work. She has a master's in human resource development and a master's and an MBA from Clemson. And in addition to that, has a bachelor's in psychology. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Nicole. Welcome, and looking forward to your remarks today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. And I did not wear orange, so Scott was very happy about that. We joked about that earlier. But I love NC State, and Jessica and I met a few years back, and I just love her. So thank you, Jessica and Scott, for having me here today. It's been an honor. Well, we're going to dive right in. I think we have about 10 minutes or so at the end for Q&A. So you can add those, I believe, here in Zoom, or you can raise your hand and we can have an open discussion. But at any point, if you want to stop me, feel free to. There is a lot. So what I always like to begin my presentations with is, what's the one thing that you can walk away with and take action on today? So I'm going to throw a lot at you, but what's one thing that you can take action on as a result of what we talk about today? Not all of the things, just one thing. So with that, I am sharing. And if you could give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen, we'll get started. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. So this is about mastering the middle and how to navigate career success. And I think in the post on LinkedIn and everything that I saw, it said, should I stay or should I go? So we're going to talk about all of that here today. We're also going to talk about, how do you assess where you are today and your satisfaction with your career, your current position, to get to where you want to be in your career by developing a strategic career plan. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to look at new career path approaches because we know the world of work is shifting. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about how to motivate your team, and then how to take action to renew your career. So with that, I want to ask, what is mid-career? So what is mid-career to you? Type into the chat if you have access. I believe everyone does. Just type into the chat. What is mid-career to you? What is mid-career? And while you're typing, I don't see anything coming in yet, but feel free to share. What is it to you? What does it feel like to you? What does it mean to you? What the studies show. Yes, 10 years into a career, Emily, perfect. Now, Lisa says that now is mid-career. I'm curious to see what that means. Scott says 30 to 40 years of age. Absolutely. Those are spot on. So when we think about mid-career, it's typically 10 years plus. But this was an interesting stat that I found on Forbes. And before I go into career disruption, I want to talk about this stat. So the average retirement age today is 64 years old. So that gives you about 42 years of work. So the way that I look at that, mid-career is anywhere from 15 to 20 plus years of working, right? Especially if you make career shifts and other things that we'll talk about. You have about 42 years total that you're working. Some people work longer, and we're starting to see that trend as people live longer, as people need to work for inflation and just economic stability. All of those things come into play. However, it's about 10 years plus is when you have the experience and the expertise to do your job and do it well. So as the career disruptor, which Scott mentioned, I could not have a presentation and not talk about what that means. Most people think that what does that mean? It's extreme or it's mysterious. To me, it's really, what is the status quo for you? And how is that preventing you from getting to where you want to be in your career in life? So what is the status quo and how can you disrupt it? So for everyone on this call, the career disruption can mean something very differently because everyone has something different that they're trying to break the status quo around, or something that's a barrier or an obstacle to them based on the status quo and what they think they should do versus what they really want to do in their hearts. So poll number 1 is about to launch. This is how you get your credit. So I think Jessica's launching that here in a second. So I want to hear your thoughts. around mid-career challenges. So what is your biggest challenge right now as a mid-career professional? Type into the chat. So the first option is burnout from years of working in the same industry, difficulty finding opportunities for advancement, balancing personal and professional responsibilities, developing your skills to enhance job security, or a general lack of motivation due to unclear career goals. All right, they're coming in. We'll give it a few more seconds because I still see it moving. Okay, so we can end the poll. Okay, 56% of you said balancing personal and professional responsibilities. I'm curious in the chat if you can share what that is. Are you in the sandwich generation where you're having to navigate elder care and taking care of aging parents and children? Is it other things like navigating other family situations and work? Can you type into the chat and share with us a little bit about that? And while you're doing that, I'm going to close out the poll. I don't see anything. Kids and aging parents. Yes, that's a big one, which is often called the sandwich generation, which many of you may know. Children, yes, the balance and juggle of raising children, which we saw in the pandemic. Very difficult time for both moms and dads. Kids, young kids, yes, yes. So balance is a huge one. It's not going to go away. And so we're going to talk about how do you think strategically? Yes, sandwich generation, Laura. Love that. Thank you all for sharing. So here are some of the headlines, and I don't know about you, but to me, this is very disturbing. With the work that I do, it also offers an opportunity for me to make a bigger impact, right? But why is mid-career so tough? How to beat mid-career melees, navigating the mid-career crisis. All of those are headlines that we see over and over, and they're not old. You can see some of these articles are 5 years, 6 years old. Some are just a few months ago. But these are the headlines around mid-career. So when I think about this, the reason why I was trying, as I was building out this presentation and thinking about today and how to offer the most value to you who showed up here today, which I'm super excited, it's really about decisions. And when I think about that, I've seen it over and over again at the executive table. I've seen it over and over again throughout different stages of career coaching. It's the decision. And this is the dilemma. Should I stay? Should I go? Should I make a move here or should I do this instead? It's always the decision dilemma. And going back to this image, I thought it resonated so well because of the mountain. When we are going down a path, there are so many different roads that we can take. So we can take this path, we can take another path. But oftentimes, again, there's a mountain, there's a struggle, there's something ahead that causes a dilemma. It causes us to feel stuck because we don't know how to get past. And so my hope for you today as you go throughout this presentation is that, again, you find something that if you are feeling stuck, that helps you get unstuck and feel that excitement again about your career. And if that's not you, if you're happy with where you are, then helping someone else that you know get unstuck based on the information that I'll be sharing today. So if you're feeling stuck or stagnant, the first thing that I want you to do, and you can do this here yourself if you have a journal that you're taking notes on, think about your current position. So assess where you are, assess your satisfaction. The first thing that I want you to think about is, are you using your strengths at work every day? Are you using strengths at work every day? And I've had people push back on this because this is not a new stack. We all, so Marcus, I think it's Buckingham, who has a book called Go Find Your Strengths. He has several books. That particular notion that you can use your strengths every day, some people challenge me on that because they're confused. They're like, how can you use your strength every day? But if we are not doing things that are in our strong suits every day, it is draining on our energy. And so one of the things that we think about is, are you doing things that are energizing you, or is what you're doing draining you? And that's a sign that you're not operating in your strengths. You're not working in your strengths on a regular basis. And you should be doing something that uses your strengths every day. Studies have proven that that is effective. So this stat, professionals who exercise their strengths every day are 6 times more likely to be engaged at work. They're 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life, and they're 8% more productive than others. So we know, and this is through years of history or through years of data now that strengths at work really plays a role in your productivity, your level of engagement, your performance. The second thing that I want you to do is to assess how you're feeling in terms of autonomy. Do you feel a sense of autonomy and control over your own goals, your behaviors, and your destiny? So do you feel autonomy? Do you feel like you have control over your own goals and destiny? The third thing that I want you to assess, have you mastered the skills needed to succeed and achieve competence at work or in your environment? Have you mastered the skills to succeed and achieve competence? It's the mastery of the task that you're doing every day. Do you feel like you're good at that? Good at what you're doing? And then are you feeling that sense of connection or relatedness to other people at work? Are you feeling a sense of connection or relatedness to other people at work? And the reason this is important, so this stat is from Daily News, Business Daily News. Internal networking and relationships actually boost job satisfaction. So this stat shows that getting coworkers to network with each other, to build relationships with each other, to connect, improves the likelihood of someone leaving by 140%. It reduces employee turnover by 140%. And I want you to think about this for yourself. When you have people that you work with every day, that you love working with, that you can collaborate well with, that you have fun with, but you also work very hard with, it's hard to leave that organization. And if you are a leader, I know many of you are leaders here today, VPs, CFOs, leaders of teams. I want you to think about that for yourself. When you have people around you at work that you're connected to, it just makes it more difficult to leave. And you can do that with your team too, which is, we're not talking about hybrid work today. I do have a presentation on that, but that's why I think people fear remote work and even hybrid work, because they know that we still need that sense of networking, that sense of connection at work. We don't need to isolate and disconnect ourselves. That can cause people to really feel alone, but also feel like work is just work because there's nothing more to it. There's no connection. So I want you to think about that as you're motivating your team, managing a team. We'll talk more about that at the end today. But this is a summary of what I just shared. Assess your current position, your strengths, your autonomy, your competence, and your relatedness. And the last three items that you see here are from self-determination theory. So if you wanted to go and learn more about that, you can look up self-determination theory, but it's a theory around motivation. I'll talk a little bit about that as it relates to your team as well. But these are important when you're thinking about your position today. And if you're feeling stuck, look at, do I have an opportunity again to be great? Do I have control over the direction or the choices that I'm making? Am I feeling effective in my role? And do I have access to help and the support that I need? If you look at any of these bullets or if you're feeling stuck in your career right now, or you know someone who's feeling stuck, it's usually one of these areas. This is not an all-inclusive list, but you can usually pinpoint, I don't feel connected anymore. I've lost track of people that I used to, connect with over a regular basis, go to dinner with, go to lunch. I don't feel connected anymore. Or maybe you don't feel like you have a sense of control over where you're going. You feel lost, you feel stuck. Or maybe you feel like you're not operating with your highest value and impact at work, or you're not as effective as you once was, or you've mastered everything that you feel you need to know in that role. And so you feel stuck because it's time to really move on. So if you're feeling stuck, I want you to look at those things. And I'm going to share a quick story. When I was I worked for a CPA firm many years ago. I actually felt this feeling as well, was feeling stuck. It'd been in my career for over 10 years at that point. And I just felt like I wasn't operating in my strengths. And I remember sitting down, having my review with my manager. And one of the things that I decided to share with her was that I love presenting. I'm a Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters in 2006 and became a Toastmaster competency C after that, and then the president of the club and all of these different things. And I loved, just had a passion for speaking. And I hadn't been using that at that company. I switched roles or switched companies actually 3 years prior, and I just felt like I wasn't using the skills that I had used before and that I had learned before and gained before. And I went to her and I said, one of the things that I want to do is start presenting more. I feel like I'm not using that skill set. Please let me know if you hear of any opportunities for me to do that. I would love to do that in the firm. 2 weeks later, had a call from the chief people officer saying, I heard you wanted to speak. I have something in Maryland that I cannot attend that I was supposed to speak at. It's about this topic. Can you go there and speak on my behalf? Can you go there and speak on this topic? And I said yes, not knowing exactly how I was going to do it, I didn't expect for that opportunity to come so quickly. But my point in that story is because I shared and I knew I felt stuck and I wasn't operating in my strengths, I could identify I need more of this in my job. I need to do more of this to have a bigger impact. Fast forward a few years later, I had the CEO actually contact me and tell me that people are raving about your speaking. We want you to travel around, continuing to speak on behalf of the firm. There was an opportunity for several CPA firms several leaders were going over to Greece. And I had an opportunity to speak virtually. At first, it was going to be going over, but they decided that we would speak virtually. And he chose me to speak on behalf of the firm to leaders in Greece. Now, there was a pivot in that story that I'll come back to at the end because I did not get that opportunity because something else happened. But that was an honor. And even the CPO, she said, Nicole, he didn't ask me to speak. He asked you to speak on behalf of the firm. And I just wanted to share that quick story with you because if you can go back to this list and see if you're starting to feel stuck or you have someone on your team, what are some things that you can do to pull these things out of them and say, hey, what do you want to do more of? What are some strengths that you have that you're not using here? All right. So with that, I want to go into career approaches, but before we talk about career approaches, I want to talk about career leverage in your journey. So thinking about your career leverage journey, the first thing that we do when we come out, you all know this, you're mid-career, right? We all are. We're learning. We're just learning a lot. We're building a lot of knowledge. We're growing in that area. The next area in our career journey that we can leverage outside of learning, after education, coming out of school, we can leverage that, but it's our skill set. We're building a skill set based on applied knowledge, right? Applied learning. So we're starting to develop skills and we can leverage that for new opportunities, for promotions, for all of these other things. But the next thing that you can leverage in your journey is the value. When you can offer value in a way that builds revenue or reduce costs or that improves quality or that improves efficiency, any of these things, you're starting to make a difference and add value. You can leverage that. You can speak to that. You can talk about that. You can negotiate around that, even in your current role, right? So all of those things, learning, skills, value. But the next step on your career leverage journey is your impact. Once you start to build knowledge, you start to develop skills, you start to add value, then you can have a bigger impact in that organization. And I've seen it so many times where people, again, they're not sure they're not sure how to position themselves. This is your positioning. Like, do you have skills? Do you have value that you've added? Are you making an impact in a way where people can see what you've done even when you leave that organization? They can feel your impact. And the last leverage point in your journey is your connections, or how you're connecting. One of the biggest leverage points that we have are our relationships. Are you building relationships with people along the journey, or have you left companies and you don't have those relationships anymore? You haven't kept in touch with those past coworkers anymore. There's a stat that actually shows that a lot of people in retirement, one of their biggest regrets is not keeping in touch with former coworkers and former colleagues and people that they've met along the journey outside of their family and friends. So thinking about your connections and how you're connecting people, but you're also connected to people, that can be leverage. I literally have sat in rooms where people are like, well, this person knows that person and they can get us connected to this person. So your connections become leverage in your career journey. Opportunities, right? As you're negotiating and thinking about your next steps, you can leverage each of these pieces as you go throughout your career. So we're going to get to a poll here in a second, but I want to talk about, again, we talked about relationships. The other half of that is results. You need relationships, but you also have to get results in your roles. You all know that. You ask this of your team. So it's really simple. When I think about performance, we make it so complex, right? But it's really about relationships. Are you building the right relationships with our clients, with our people, with internal team members? And are you getting results. And the relational and task focus. Are you, again, building relationships? Are you having that element? Are you balancing out that element in your role? And your tasks, are you able to get things done? And the reason I added this to the slide is because when I go and do leadership development training, I have several clients that I go in, I do leadership development training, and we talk about ways to optimize their team, ways to improve meetings, all of these different things, enhance communications, energize, how to develop strategic thinking. One of the things I ask them to think about with their team is, are people right now more relational focused or more task focused, or are they balancing that? Because you may have someone, there was an individual who was actually on the partner path at one of the firms that I worked for, and she was heads down. She got her job done. People knew that they could depend on her. But when it came time to put people up for partner, all of you may not be in CPA firms anymore, or some of you still may be. But when it came time to look at her book of business, put her up for partner, they said, well, yes, she's good at getting things done, but she doesn't mentor anyone. She's always heads down getting things done. We don't really know much about her. She's a great employee. She doesn't cause any issues, but she doesn't really have any relationships with anyone else. She hasn't built relationships. She hasn't built a network. And that was one of the hindering reasons for her. Like, she could not get promoted without that. She needed both the tasks and the relationships, because we know as you move up in your career, yes, the technical piece is important, but soft skills become even more critical because you're leading a team or you're leading other leaders. So this stat from the Future of the Accounting report shows 85% of career success comes from soft skills, other 15% from technical skills. And I have seen this over and over again. People are really good technically, but they're not really good at some of the softer skills that they need to continue to thrive in their career. And so they start to hit roadblocks. Even if they're promoted along the way, at some point they hit a roadblock because they're not able to really lead or communicate effectively or relate or motivate their team or get work done through others or think strategically about the future and the trends that are happening and respond to it in a proactive way. So all of those things start to come into play throughout their career. So that was career leverage and thinking through that. I want to share career path approaches, and I want you to choose the best approach for you. So when I think about career path approaches, the first career path or approach is really becoming an expert at what you do. So really deepening your expertise, becoming an expert in that area. The second area is a career ladder. This is a traditional, I go from this point to this point to this point, all the way up to the top of my career field. And it's typically on the same trajectory, right? It's typically in the same field. It's in the same profession. You're not moving from this profession or this industry. It's usually in the same industry, the same profession. Career ladder, traditional career ladder, upwards ladder, and upwards mobility. The third area or approach to your career path is looking at career shifts. So looking at how can you make a career change, which is usually what comes up for mid-career professionals is, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is what I want to do anymore. I may want to shift. Now, for many of you who are CPAs or you've been in the MAP program, this may not be for you. We see this with a lot of other mid-career professionals, but for you, you may say, I love what I'm doing. I absolutely love what I'm doing. I'm just going to continue to try to get up, like move my way up the ladder or build my expertise. So, but career shifts is really about how are you, like for some professionals, they know they want to make a change. They don't want to work in the same industry. I knew someone who went from like an HR role to social work, totally different career shift. I went from sales in my career early on into HR. So again, career shifts. How are you making career shifts? That could be an option for you, making career transitions and changes. And the fourth career approach is kind of new. I didn't develop it, but it's this term that's been buzzing around for the past few years now called career portfolio. And that is where you usually have different pieces of you that you're building, like you're building a career based on different pieces of who you are. So you may have a side hustle. You may have something that you're doing freelance or gig. You may have something that you do adjunct professors. You may become an adjunct professor. There's just different pieces of who you are to create this career portfolio. And sometimes it's the career portfolio of experiences where you may move from this field into this field into this field. It's almost like a mosaic, a career mosaic. But I love career portfolios because I think it gives people an opportunity to build pieces of them and see if they can make income from different passions and interests that they have. So again, those are 4 career approaches. I want you to choose one approach. And I'm going to go back to this. Think about it for yourself. Are you a career expert? You really don't want to move up the ladder. You just want to build deep expertise in one area. Or you know that you want to make your way up the ladder and you want to keep rising and rising and rising until you reach the top. Nothing wrong with that. Again, you may be someone who's thinking about a possible career shift, or you want to have a portfolio of things. And I'm going to give you, like for me, right now, I'm an adjunct professor. I'm also an entrepreneur. I run my own business and I do leadership development, consulting and coaching programs. I also do career coaching as well. And I speak. And so there's all of these different pieces of what I do in my career. And I'm not opposed to the right opportunity, if the right opportunity comes, to maybe doing a corporate role too. I feel like for me, that works, but for everyone else, may not. But we're seeing more and more people start moving down this path of career portfolio and creating different income and experiences that they'd like to have in their career. So with that, choose your approach, and we're going to launch poll number 2. I want to give you a breather. Which future trends do you think will have the biggest impact on your career? The redesign of jobs due to AI, the removal of remote work and the return to office, the collapse of traditional linear career ladders, shorter work weeks and restructuring of the traditional 9-to-5 workday. Still see it moving. We'll give it another second. All right. Okay, we can stop the poll. So the redesign of jobs, that is interesting to me. And I'm not surprised because I've been looking at AI as well. I use AI in my business now. Tell me in the chat, why do you think that will impact you? This question was, which future trends do you think will have the biggest impact? Tell me a little bit about why. The redesign of jobs due to AI. 36% of you said that is what you think will have the biggest impact. So why? I'm looking in the chat for responses. No responses, but we have 36% of you say this will have the biggest impact. If you don't know, just type, I don't know. Or DK, don't know. Looking at AI to solve staff and shortage resource issues, more accuracy. Yes, Katie. Robin, as an educator, AI is affecting my courses. I have seen some AI written material and it is not good. It is not good. And it has its place, but yes, the lower level of work will be taken over by AI. So incoming employees will be expected to start at a higher level of knowledge and experience. Absolutely. James, it changes the skills we're looking for in staff level positions. Yes. Well, you all are bringing up some great points too. We're thinking about that. Like, how are we going to leverage our entry level talent, especially, those who are maybe in an academic environment or have that career portfolio where you're working as a professor too? Are we going to have positions for our entry level talent if we're looking for higher level responsibilities and roles, or are we going to be able to train? We're going to talk about upskilling here towards the end, but yes. Okay, so we can stop the poll and I'm going to exit out of that. Perfect. Thank you all for sharing. That was really, really good. And hopefully you're taking that away, because if your leaders aren't thinking about that, absolutely, they should be thinking about all of those trends, especially AI. So now we're going to move into strategic career planning. Strategic career planning, there are 4 components, and it's something that I've actually designed, a framework that I use with my coaching clients. It's relationship management, brand management, skills management, and search management. So strategic career planning the first thing that you want to do when you're developing a strategic career plan is, what is your goal? What is your ultimate career goal? And I'm going to give you some examples of how this would work, how this framework built out would look. But the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what is my ultimate goal? Sometimes when we feel stuck, it's like we don't know what we're actually aiming for, right? What's down the bend of that highway that we saw around the mountain? What's around the corner? We don't know. But what is our ultimate goal? Really reflecting on that and having a goal that we set for ourselves. The second part is, what relationships do we need to build and reach our career goal? What network, what connections, what relationships do we need to build and reach our goals? The third one, what can you do to build your personal brand inside and outside of your company? This is a whole presentation by itself, brand management, personal branding, all of those pieces. But I would implore you to absolutely build a brand. I know it may be like, well, I don't need that. Why do I need a personal brand? But build one inside and outside of your company so people start to know who you are. I had some of my students tell me that, hey, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I said, no, the new thing is, it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you. And that is really what a brand is about. People may know you, and you don't even know who they are, but they know who you are. So it's important to build a brand around that career leverage, like around your value, what impact you bring, what skills you have, the knowledge that you have, and the connections and relationships that you've built. Those are leverage points that you can use to build your unique value prop and also your brand inside and outside of your company. The fourth one is, what skills would you like to grow to reach your goal? So what skills would you like to grow and develop so you can support your company? You know, a lot of you are here with companies that you love and that you're excited about as well. What skills do you want to add that they may need? What are some gaps in the organization that you can bring and you can actually close for them by developing a skill set in that area? And then how will you explore or search for new opportunities, your search process? So I'm going to give you two quick examples. The first one is from a former client of mine. She was an engineer, had been in her career for about 20 years. And her ultimate goal when she came to me, she was a little frustrated because she had been in mid-career and had not been promoted into a manager role. She had worked on billion-dollar engineering, global engineering projects, but had never been promoted into a true manager role or director role. So her goal was, I want to become an engineering director. Very clear. Relationship management. Her strategy for that area is building a stronger internal network with leaders across the US and also her direct manager. She didn't have the strongest relationship with her manager. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't strong either. So really focusing in on that, we worked on that. And then her developing relationships outside of her direct manager as well with other leaders who knew her name and knew who she was and what she brought to the company. Her brand management plan was really to moderate company-sponsored events. So she started to go. She went to Vegas and moderated a STEM event and had other people reach out to her at the end saying, hey, can you come to our school and talk about STEM? Or can you come, even though she worked for that company and she's still there today, she started to moderate and facilitate these company-sponsored events around STEM and exposing others to the STEM profession. Skills management. She improved her communication skills and her ability to sell herself internally and manage up because she really wasn't comfortable with that. That was one of the things that she wanted help around. And then her search management, sharing her desire to be promoted with her manager and internal managers. Also, she earned a sponsor. She had people start to reach out and say, hey, I've heard about you. I've heard great things about you. I want to mentor you. I want to get you to whatever your goal is. I want to help you reach it. So her search management, how she was going to search for new opportunities, was really her internal network and really building her internal presence as well. The result, she was promoted to engineering director within 18 months, and she used a career ladder approach. She wanted to move up and up and up. So she was promoted, reached out to me and said, hey, I got my promotion, and has since been promoted again. Strategic career planning example number 2. This is actually close to heart because it's about my goal. Becoming vice president of HR was always my goal, or executive leader in HR. My relationship management part of my strategic career plan, I literally built this out, was to join and actively participate in industry associations. So I joined SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management. I joined my local SHRM. I networked at conferences, attended conferences, really trying to build relationships with people over time. Brand management, I wanted to use LinkedIn. So I created a strong LinkedIn profile, really started to understand LinkedIn very early on. 10 years, over a decade ago, to build my visibility. So I started to post on LinkedIn, post thought leadership material so I can become known as a thought leader. That is also something that leaders look for, and decision makers. When you are a thought leader and you're bringing that into that organization, people love that. They start to look at you, and actually they start to reach out to you. Skills management, grow leadership, strategic thinking, social influence. That was one thing that I needed to do, was build my leadership skills, expand my strategic thinking and my social influence. I went back to school, earned 2 masters in 2013, 2014. Those are the years that I graduated. Took me about 3 years working full time to do them both, but did that to really build my skills and expand my skills. And still today, always thinking about my skill set and learning. And the last piece was search management, earning passive recruitment opportunities through brand building activities. The result was me doing all of that. I actually had a recruiter reach out to me about an opportunity that wasn't right. 2 years prior to me leaving the CPA firm, she had reached out and I said, it's not the right opportunity, but here's what I am looking for. Here's what I would love to have if I had, the ideal position. And she heard me out. I didn't ignore the recruiter. I talked to her, shared that this is not right for me, but this is what I'm looking for. She reached out to me 2 years later and said, hey, are you interested? We have a VP of HR opportunity available. And from the time that I developed this plan to the time that I moved into that VP of HR role was about 5 years, because I had to build out my plan, work my plan. Plus, I started in sales, so I didn't start out in HR. So when you make a career shift, one thing to note is that it may delay your career goal or whatever you want to do, because you're making a shift into something totally different and you're having to work your way up from the ground up again, which is fine, kind of earning and paying your dues, right? But I was recruited away into a VP of HR role that she thought, based on what you said, I think this is a perfect opportunity. And I was offered the position, of course, had to go through the interview process, get several other candidates, but was offered that opportunity as well. And so I was able to reach that goal. So one of the things that I want you to think about is future-proofing your career. And I love this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's from Alvin Toffler. And it says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I want to emphasize that again. They cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We're always in this cycle of learning, unlearning what we thought we knew, and relearning something new again. And we have to do that for the rest of our careers. If we're not, we're becoming stagnant. And has anyone, so I want you to raise your hand. I'm looking on screen, those that I can see. I can't see everyone, but let's make it a blockbuster night. Does anyone remember this? Let's make it a blockbuster night. The campaigns. Rhonda, you're raising your hand. I love it. I wish I could have a conversation we can unmute and talk about this, because Blockbuster only has one store left. I forget where it is. I think it's in Oregon, but I always get it wrong. It may be in Texas. I can't remember, but there's only one Blockbuster left. And the reason I brought this up is because when I think about the former quote, learning, unlearning, and relearning, I just watched a documentary on mega brands built in America. I love watching those, love watching them. Blockbuster is a case study that I've used for years in my DEI work. I've talked about that. I've talked about Blockbuster and whose perspective was at the table when they were making decisions. But in watching the documentary, the CEO at the time actually took a DVD and said, no one's ever going to use these flimsy things, and threw it in the trash. So in 1997, DVDs were $600 to $1,000. He saw it. He said, no one's ever going to do this. We're going to still sell our VHS tapes. Threw it in the trash. Netflix, during the 1999-2000 dot-com boom or bust, actually came to Blockbuster to say, hey, we'll sell for $50 million. For $50 million, because they were selling DVDs, and they knew Blockbuster at that time, 2 years later, started to get into the DVD business and got rid of all of their VHSs after 2 years. and started to move into DVDs. And so they said, we'll sell our business to you. They said, no way, we're paying you $50 million for this business. We know the rest is history. They then moved, I think in the mid 2000s, 2005-ish, into streaming. And that changed everything. Netflix today is over $250 billion in sales. The reason I stress that is that all of us have that within us to learn something, unlearn it, relearn it, so we can impact our companies and the companies that you're representing here today, future companies that you may be working with. What is that thing that people are stuck, the status quo, that they need to disrupt their thinking around? And that's why disruption is so meaningful for me. That's why career disruption is what I build my career around, because this, to me, like, how did they miss it? How did they not see this? And so I think we have to unlearn what we don't know. Now, according to Forbes, here are the top 5 skill sets to stay relevant in the future. So analytical thinking, creative thinking, leadership and social influence, AI and big data, and curiosity and lifelong learning. I am so happy NC State is doing this series because it's all about lifelong learning. You're getting access to board service, to AI. I think someone talked about AI, I believe, previously. All of these things that you're able to tap into to have lifelong learning. And as CPAs, I know you have to get your CPEs or your continuing education credits or professional education credits. That's the beauty of being who you are in your profession. I have a lot of respect for CPAs, accountants. I just, because it's built in, you have to stay ahead to continue to advance. So I think that's built into the profession. And these are the things that if you can keep these things, you will always beat AI. I mean, AI is valuable. We need it. It will cause a lot of disruption, but I think that it won't replace our ability to analytically think, connect dots in a way that a computer can't, to be creative and all of these other pieces as well. So don't be afraid to disrupt the status quo. So poll number 3 is launching. And after that, we only have, this went very, very fast. So we only have I'm going to probably try to wrap up in about 3 to 5 minutes. So I may have to cut some material short. But we'll try to get through as much as we can so we can open it up for Q&A. Do you feel prepared to motivate, engage, and retain the next generation of professionals at work? Awesome. The majority of you, yes. So we can end the poll. 74% said yes, which is great. So this section, I'm going to go through pretty quickly because that poll tells me you already know these things. So mid-career team strategies, if you're wanting to engage your team, some ways to do that. Just looking through the list here, positive team, creating that positive team and work environment, employee wellness, employee events, making sure that you're recognizing your people and recognizing your talent. Sounds like something that you're doing to engage, but creating that wellness, creating events to keep people engaged, recognizing their contributions are simple ways. These aren't complex or groundbreaking strategies. It's just, how are you doing at least one of these things every single day to engage your team? And again, it sounds like you all are doing that well. Mid-career team strategies for retention. I see a lot of more of my clients, but also companies implementing mentorship programs again. So young professionals are wanting, or early career professionals, I should say, they're wanting more mentorship. They're wanting more guidance. They're wanting coaching. And so they are offering mentorship programs internally, training and development programs, job rotations, and special projects and talents forces. And then to advance your team, leadership development is always going to be huge. I saw something recently that said hybrid workplaces want leadership development the most. Remote individuals who work remotely don't really see the value as much in leadership development, but those who are working in hybrid environments absolutely are starting to see the need for leadership development to try to navigate that and other things that are changing. Internal mobility and promotions. More and more companies are looking to internal talent. How do we mobilize our internal talent? How do we promote them internally? Employee sponsorship programs and upskilling programs. So I want to touch on this briefly, upskilling versus reskilling. You'll hear this a lot, but upskilling is really, how do I take my skill set and really advance my skill set for existing roles, the roles that exist today, or my current role. Reskilling is saying, okay, we see a gap and we see that a whole segment of our workforce will not be needed if we don't reskill, we don't retool. And so we need to reskill them for whatever the next set of skills would be. So I know AT&T did this many years ago. Fiber optics was going away, cable, all of those things. So they were looking at we know broadband is a new thing. How do we reskill people? And I think they partnered with Georgia Tech to do that, if I'm not mistaken, but they created a whole program to reskill people around broadband and all of these things that were coming down the pipe. So that way they didn't have to lose a lot of great people just because they didn't have the right skill set. So think about your organization. How can people upskill or either reskill for the roles? Not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can find this on LinkedIn, but these are the 2024 most in-demand skills. What I will highlight is the top skill of the moment per LinkedIn is adaptability. Companies are looking for people who can adapt, people who can pivot, people who can move into different roles or play different roles based on what the organization needs. So if you're thinking about that from mid-career, that's something to think about as well. But you can find this on LinkedIn, the 2024 most in-demand skills. Here are some skill building methods. Again, not going to talk about all of these, but Scott mentioned board service earlier. So that is a way to build your skill set. There are some companies that are using skills-based volunteering efforts so people can actually use their skills or build new skills while also volunteering. On the job rotations is a great thing. I've done job rotations before where I've moved out of one role and gone into a totally different role to learn that role so I can better understand what that role entails. And job rotations can be 12 to 18 months up to 24 months or even 6 months. But job rotations are a great way to build the skills for yourself or even your team. So here are just a few skill building efforts as well. So we're at 12:53. Jessica, do you mind if I wrap up in 2 minutes and have 5 minutes for Q&A? Okay. Sorry about that. I wanted to just talk briefly about the assumption that the need for growth drives behavior. If you all are a leader on this call and you're struggling because you're like, okay, I don't think I have a person on my team and they just seem fine with where they are, then they may not have a high need for growth. So some of the things that we've talked about around self-determination earlier may not apply to them because they're okay with where they are. They don't have a high need for growth. This assumes that you have a high need for growth. So with poll number 4, I think we have our 3 polls in. Are we good, Jessica? Or do we need to launch? Okay. So decision dilemma. Here's your action step. We're going to wrap up now, but I want you to create a strategic career plan to achieve your goals. Or you may choose to develop a new skill set, grow your personal brand, expand your professional network, or seek a promotion. But whatever it is, I want you to think about what is that action step for you as you're thinking about your career. And mastering the middle for me is really about redefining success. So what I would charge you with today is you'll have this recording, but redefine success for you. Success at 22 when you're coming out of college, it may not be the same at 42 and the same at 62. So redefine what success looks like for you now. And then some of the other things that we didn't get to, but just thinking about how can you give back by mentoring and teaching the next generation at this middle stage, because you can serve as a gap stop for them as well. So I am going to go into Q&A. Here's my contact information. I do have a free download. So if you're looking, you can reach out to me via email. I don't want to spend more time on this because we're at 12:55. So I want, just take a screenshot. I have a free strategic career plan template that I can send you if you're wanting to really build this out for yourself. I'm also happy to just connect with you if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm at the Nicole Andrews Official. Would love to hear how this has impacted you or some of your takeaways as well. So 5 minutes. Let's open it up for Q&A. I'm going to stop share.
So who wants to be the first one to ask questions? Oh, come on, jump in.
I'll ask the question.
Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Always have questions. Would you consider a career shift similar to, for instance, in my personal career, just thinking about redefining exactly what it is you want to be doing in your career. So, for instance, I've have a reputation of a certain aspect in my current career in clinical research, which people have a tendency to reach out to me for, and I get stuck there. Whereas I want to be at a different level with new skills that I've developed over the past few years, and have a hard time busting out of that.
So there's several things that I'm hearing with that, Lisa. One is upskilling, because it sounds like you still want to stay in your field, right? You still want to be in that field, or you don't want to be in the field.
I love the field. I'm very challenged by it, other than being stuck at, you know, in a certain place because I'm really good at it.
Yes. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that's career shift, because career shift is almost like, I want to get out of this field and move into a totally different field. You don't want to do a lot of different things. You just want to do something else and do that one thing, but it's new. It's something different. So I wouldn't look at that as a career shift. To me, it sounds like it's almost expanding your brand. And and even if you don't want to say the word brand, it could be, people need to know you for more than that one thing. So how do you start to expand that? How do you start to, because you already have that knowledge, it sounds like you don't need to upskill, but how do you expand the awareness of what you can do outside of that one thing? To me, that's brand management and thought leadership. And you can start to really socialize that, build thought leadership around that, or share with people that, hey, I do this too. If you need help around this, I do this too. So it's about your brand more than a career shift.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. That was a great question. Thank you, Lisa. It's always hard for the first question.
Nicole, I have a question. So since you're adjuncting, you're dealing with Gen Z like we are in the program, and like maybe many of the people on the call, managing Gen Z coming in as, associates and early in their career. How does the self-determination theory apply to, does it change among the generations, specifically that younger Gen Z coming in to the workforce?
So this theory doesn't change. It doesn't account right now for different generational changes. And what I'm seeing, again, that's a whole other topic, but what I'm seeing from this generation is that they want to contribute. So they do want to use their strengths at work. In terms of autonomy, they love autonomy, right? They want to have complete freedom, complete control, and there has to be some structure, right, in the workplace. So a lot of that is almost like a challenge. It's almost like their self-determination squared. And I'm not judging, but it's self-determination squared, because it's almost like, no, they are super motivated to use their strengths. They're super autonomous. They are very connected, but in a different way, because connection over a phone and text and social is not the same as interpersonal connectedness. So there is maybe a gap there in understanding what true, real connection is. And the competence piece, I'm trying to be very careful with what I say there. The competence piece, sometimes there's a little bit more confidence, because like, I know how to do this versus, like, for example, I'll give you all a real example. One of my students, I was giving them feedback on their resume. Obviously, this is the work that I do. And I said, he had whole paragraphs on his resume under each of his jobs, paragraphs, and every job had a paragraph. And I said, I would list bullet points with the action verb, the results, like the action that you took, starting with an action verb, the result of that action. And I gave them like a framework. There was something else that I added in there. And he replied back to me and said, I received great feedback from my resume. I'm going to leave paragraphs on it. It's fine. So again, the competence, the mastery of skills, the mastery of knowledge, I do think there's a gap there. But I would say strengths, autonomy, they have, but I think they are motivated in the same way that every human being is. I don't think that core motivation changes.
Well, Nicole, with that, we're at the magic hour at 1 o'clock. So, Nicole, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I wrote down a whole page of things here, from identifying my strengths to assessing my current position to what I do if I'm feeling stuck, some career leveraging journey, the importance of relationships and soft skills, looking at my career path approaches, strategic career planning, and I love learning, unlearning, and rolling, because that's what we do around here a lot. So that's really great. But the last thing Nicole left us with was that action step, and pick what you want to do. Don't leave today without deciding what you're going to do.